Why do you run from the one person you can never escape? Every morning you wake up with the same companion. Every night you fall asleep beside them. This companion knows your deepest fears, your secret desires, your hidden shame. They witness every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every choice you make. Yet most people spend their entire existence trying to avoid this companion. They fill their days with noise. They chase after achievements. They seek validation from strangers. They consume endless entertainment. They medicate themselves with substances, with shopping, with the approval of others, all to avoid sitting alone with themselves. This is the great paradox of human existence. The very person whose company you must enjoy to find true happiness in life is the same person you've been taught to distract yourself from since childhood. Listen carefully. There is no peace to be found in the external world that does not first exist within you. There is no joy in any experience that you cannot access from the stillness of your own being. There is no love from another that can heal the wounds you refuse to tend within your own heart. Most people believe happiness is something they must find. They search for it in relationships. They hunt for it in careers. They chase it through experiences, through possessions, through the endless pursuit of more. But happiness is not found. Happiness is revealed. It exists already within you, covered by layers of conditioning, buried beneath years of believing you are not enough as you are. Think of a mountain lake on a windless morning. The surface reflects the sky so perfectly that you cannot tell where water ends and heaven begins. This is the natural state of your mind, clear, still, reflecting truth without distortion. Now watch what happens when the wind begins to blow. The surface ripples, the reflection fractures, the water becomes choppy, unclear. The mountain lake has not changed its essential nature, but its ability to reflect clearly has been disturbed. Your mind is this mountain lake. Your thoughts are the wind. Most people spend their lives in a perpetual storm, wondering why they cannot see clearly, why they feel so disconnected from peace. The ancient masters understood something that modern life has forgotten. They knew that the kingdom of heaven is within you. They knew that what you seek already exists in the depth of your being. They knew that the very act of seeking outside yourself takes you further from what you truly want. But society has programmed you differently. From the moment you could walk, you were taught to look outside yourself for validation. Good boy, good girl. You learned that your worth depended on external approval. You discovered that love seemed conditional on your performance. You absorbed a fundamental lie that you are incomplete, that something is missing, that you must become someone else to be worthy of happiness. This lie created what we might call the seeker's disease, the chronic condition of always looking for the next thing, the next person, the next experience to finally make you feel whole. Watch how this disease manifests in the ordinary person. They wake up and immediately reach for their phone, hungry for something outside themselves to give their day meaning. They scroll through the lives of others, comparing, judging, feeling either superior or inadequate. They go to work seeking recognition, approval, the validation that they matter. They return home and fill the evening with entertainment, with food, with anything that helps them avoid the quiet space where they might have to face themselves. They lie in bed at night with minds racing, replaying the day's events, worrying about tomorrow, planning and scheming, and hoping that somehow, somewhere, they will finally find what they're looking for. This is not living. This is surviving. This is existing in a constant state of inner poverty while surrounded by abundance. The man who cannot enjoy his own company will never truly enjoy the company of others. The woman who finds no peace in solitude will find no lasting peace in relationship. The person who needs external validation to feel worthy will always be at the mercy of other people's opinions. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot share a peace you have never cultivated. You cannot offer a love you have never shown yourself. Here is the truth that will change everything if you truly hear it. You are already whole. You are already complete. You are already worthy of love and happiness and peace. Not because of what you have achieved, not because of who approves of you, not because of how you look or what you own or what you have accomplished. You are worthy because you exist. You are complete because consciousness itself is complete. You are already what you seek to become. But this truth has been buried beneath years of conditioning. It has been covered by the self of parents and teachers and society telling you that you are not enough. It has been obscured by your own inner critic, that relentless, that judges and compares and finds you lacking. The spiritual warrior's first task is not to defeat external enemies. It is to recognize the enemy within mindless, the self that tells you that you are separate, inadequate, unworthy of love, unless you prove yourself. This inner enemy is not your thoughts themselves. Thoughts arise naturally, like clouds in the sky. The enemy is your identification with these thoughts. The enemy is believing that you are in your head rather than the awareness that observes this. Most people are completely possessed by their mental commentary. They believe every thought, follow every emotion, react to every stimulus, like puppets dancing to strings they cannot see. Watch a person lost in worry. Their body is here, but their mind is somewhere else entirely, playing out scenes that may never happen, rehearsing conversations that might never occur. They are absent from their own life, missing the only moment that actually exists, this one. Watch a person driven by anger. Their entire being becomes a slave to this emotion. Their face contorts. Their changes, their actions become automatic and often destructive. They have forgotten that they are not their anger. They are the consciousness within which anger arises. Watch a person caught in sadness. They sink into it as if it were their identity. They speak from it, think from it, make decisions from this temporary emotional state, as if it were their permanent reality. This is what it means to be asleep. Not literally sleeping, but spiritually unconscious, identified with every passing thought and emotion, believing yourself to be the victim of your own mental activity. The awakened person recognizes something different. They see that thoughts and emotions are like weather patterns in the sky of consciousness. They arise, they pass, they change. But the sky itself remains unchanged. You are not the storm. You are the sky within which storms appear and disappear. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness within which thoughts arise and dissolve. You are not your emotions. You are the presence within which all emotions are felt and released. This recognition changes everything. When you know yourself as the awareness rather than the content of awareness, you are no longer at the mercy of your mental and emotional weather patterns. A thought of fear arises, and instead of becoming fearful, you observe fear is arising. An emotion of sadness appears, and instead of becoming sad, you notice sadness is present. A surge of anger emerges, and rather than being angry, you witness anger is moving through. This is the beginning of freedom. This is the first step toward enjoying your own company. When you no longer identify with every passing mental and emotional state, when you recognize yourself as the permanent witness of temporary experiences, you find the peace that was always there beneath the noise. Think of the ocean. On the surface there may be waves, storms, turbulence. Ships may be tossed about, struggling against the elements, but go deeper, and you find stillness. Go deeper still, and you find profound silence. The storms on the surface do not disturb the depths. You are this ocean. Your thoughts and emotions are the surface waves. Most people live their entire lives bobbing around on the surface, at the mercy of every changing condition. But you can learn to live from the depths, from the place that remains calm regardless of what is happening above. This depth is not something you must create. It already exists within you. It is your true nature, your essential being, the consciousness that has been present since your first moment of awareness and will remain until your last. But accessing this depth requires a different kind of attention than what most people have developed. It requires learning to be present rather than lost in mental commentary. It requires developing the capacity for stillness rather than constant motion. It requires the courage to face yourself directly rather than through the endless distractions of modern life. The ordinary person fills every moment with activity, with stimulus, with noise. They are afraid of silence because in silence they might have to confront who they really are beneath all their roles and identities and accomplishments. They are afraid of stillness because in stillness they might realize how much of their life they have been living on autopilot, driven by unconscious patterns and reactions. They are afraid of being alone because when alone they come face to face with the quality of their own inner environment, and often find it chaotic, anxious, and uncomfortable. But the spiritual warrior sees these moments of solitude and silence not as something to be avoided, but as the most precious opportunities for growth and self-discovery. In the silence you hear of your deeper wisdom. In the stillness you feel the presence of your authentic self. In solitude you discover that you are actually excellent company when you stop trying to be someone else. The person who has learned to enjoy their own presence radiates a different energy. They are not needy for external validation because they have found their source of worth within. They are not desperately seeking entertainment because they have discovered the richness of their own inner world. They are not anxiously avoiding solitude because they have made peace with themselves. This person moves through life with a different quality of attention. They are present to their experience rather than lost in mental commentary about their experience. They respond to situations rather than react automatically. They make choices from awareness rather than from unconscious conditioning. But how does one make this transition? How do you move from being a prisoner of your own mind to being the master of your inner world? How do you transform from someone who runs from themselves to someone who genuinely enjoys their own company? The path begins with a simple recognition that you have a choice. In every moment you can choose where to place your attention. You can choose to follow your mental commentary, or you can choose to rest in the awareness that observes this. You can choose to be carried away by every emotion that arises, or you can choose to remain as the witness within which emotions appear and disappear. You can choose to live from the surface level of your experience, tossed about by every changing circumstance, or you can choose to anchor yourself in the depths of your being, where peace is always available. This choice is available to you right now, not tomorrow, not when you have more time, not when your circumstances are different. Right now, in this very moment, you can choose to turn your attention inward and recognize the presence that you are. Feel the aliveness in your body. Notice the space within which your thoughts arise. Sense the awareness that is reading these words right now. This awareness, this presence, this aliveness means this is who you truly are. This is the self you must learn to enjoy, if you want to enjoy life itself. Most people spend their lives trying to improve their circumstances while ignoring their state of consciousness. They believe that the right job, the right relationship, The right amount of money will finally bring them happiness. But consciousness is primary. Your state of being determines your experience of life far more than your external conditions. A person in a state of inner peace can find contentment in the simplest circumstances. A person in a state of inner turmoil will find something to worry about even in paradise. This is why the ancient teaching tells us to seek first the kingdom of heaven within, and all else will be added unto you. When you establish yourself in your true nature, in the peace and wholeness that you are, my life naturally begins to align with this inner harmony. But this requires a fundamental shift in priority. Instead of trying to fix your life so that you can be happy, you must learn to be happy so that your life can reflect this happiness. Instead of waiting for the perfect conditions to feel peaceful, you must cultivate peace within yourself so that peaceful conditions can emerge around you. Instead of seeking love from others to feel worthy, you must recognize your inherent worth so that genuine love can flow both to you and through you. This shift does not happen overnight. It requires practice, patience, and persistence. It requires developing new habits of attention and awareness. It requires learning to catch yourself when you fall back into old patterns of seeking outside yourself for what can only be found within. But every moment offers a fresh opportunity to return to your center, to remember who you truly are, to choose awareness over unconsciousness, presence over mental distraction, acceptance over resistance. The journey of learning to enjoy your own company is not about becoming a hermit or withdrawing from life. It is about discovering the source of fulfillment within yourself so that you can engage with life from a place of fullness rather than emptiness, contribution rather than need, love rather than fear. When you no longer need others to complete you, you can truly appreciate them. When you no longer need experiences to fulfill you, you can fully receive them. When you no longer need achievements to validate you, you can create from inspiration rather than desperation. This is the beginning of true freedom. This is the foundation of authentic happiness. This is the secret that the wise ones throughout history have tried to share, that what you seek in the world exists already within you, waiting to be recognized, waiting to be embraced, waiting to be enjoyed. The question is not whether you have the capacity for this recognition. You do. The question is whether you have the courage to stop running from yourself long enough to see who you truly are beneath all the stories you've been told about who you should be. Right now, something within you is listening to these words. Something is aware, alert, present. This something has been with you your entire life. It was there when you were a child, it is here now, and it will be there until your final breath. This awareness, this presence, this consciousness that you are this is your true companion. This is the self you must learn to love, to appreciate, to enjoy. Not the ego self with all its demands and complaints and never-ending needs, but the deeper self that is already whole, already peaceful, already complete. The most profound relationship you will ever have is the relationship with your own being. The most important conversation you will ever engage in is the dialogue between your surface mind and your deeper wisdom. The most crucial skill you will ever develop is the ability to be present with yourself without needing to change anything, fix anything, or become anything other than what you are. When you master this relationship, when you truly learn to enjoy your own company, everything else in your life begins to transform. Not because your circumstances necessarily change, but because your relationship to your circumstances is fundamentally altered. You are no longer a victim of your own mind. You are no longer at the mercy of your emotions. You are no longer dependent on external conditions for your sense of well-being. You become like the mountain that remains unmoved by the storms that rage around it. You become like the sun that shines regardless of the clouds that temporarily obscure it. You become like the ocean that maintains its depths even when its surface is disturbed by wind and weather. This transformation is not a destination you arrive at once and for all. It is a way of being that must be cultivated moment by moment, choice by choice, breath by breath. It is a practice that deepens over time, a skill that strengthens with use, a recognition that becomes more clear and consistent the more you return to it. The path forward requires understanding not just what to do, but how to do it. It requires specific practices and principles that can guide you from where you are now to where you want to be. It requires learning the art of inner observation, the discipline of conscious breathing, and the courage to choose response over reaction. But before we explore these practical steps, you must first accept the foundational truths we have been building toward, that you already possess everything you need to be happy, peaceful, and fulfilled. It exists within you right now, in this very moment, waiting to be accessed through the simple act of turning your attention inward and recognizing the awareness that you are. The transformation you seek rests on three fundamental pillars. Master these three practices, and you master the art of enjoying your own company. Ignore them, and you remain trapped in the endless cycle of seeking outside yourself for what can only be found within. What is the difference between a master and a student? The master has learned to observe without being consumed. The student is still drowning in their own reactions. Right now, thoughts are moving through your mind. Perhaps you are analyzing these words, judging them, comparing them to other ideas you have heard. Perhaps your mind is already jumping ahead, or drifting to something that happened earlier today. Notice this. Do not try to stop it. Simply notice. This noticing minus, this capacity to observe your own mental activity, is the first pillar of inner mastery. We call it the art of observation without judgment. Most people live their entire lives identified with their thoughts. They believe they are in their head. When it says I am worried, they become worried. When it says I am angry, they become angry. When it says I am not good enough, they believe it completely. But you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness within which thoughts arise and dissolve. Think of your mind as a river. Most people fall into this river and get swept away by every current of thought and emotion. The spiritual warrior learns to stand on the riverbank, watching the water flow without being carried away by it. From the riverbank you can see clearly. You can observe the patterns in the water, the debris that floats by, the way the current changes with different conditions. But you are not at the mercy of these changes because you are not in the river minus, you are the witness of the river. This shift from being in the stream of thought to observing the stream of thought is perhaps the most important skill you can develop. It is the difference between being a victim of your own mind and being the master of your inner world. But how do you develop this capacity for observation? How do you learn to step back from the river of mental activity and take your place on the shore? The practice begins with something so simple that most people overlook it entirely. You begin by noticing that you are noticing. Right now you are aware of these words. But there is something even more fundamental happening. You are aware of being aware. This awareness of awareness is your true nature. It is what the ancient texts call the witness, the observer, the consciousness within which all experience arises. Throughout your day you can strengthen this witness by asking yourself simple questions. What am I thinking right now? What am I feeling in this moment? What sensations are present in my body? You are not asking these questions to change anything. You are asking them to cultivate the part of you that can observe without being consumed, that can witness without being overwhelmed. When a thought of worry arises, Instead of becoming worried, you notice worry is arising. When frustration appears, instead of being frustrated, you observe frustration is present. When joy emerges, instead of losing yourself in it, you recognize joy is moving through. This may seem like a small distinction, but it changes everything. The moment you can observe your mental and emotional states rather than being completely identified with them, you have found the key to inner freedom. Watch what happens when you practice this observer awareness. A difficult emotion arises, perhaps sadness or anger or fear. Normally you would become this emotion completely. Your entire being would be colored by it. You would think from it, speak from it, make decisions from this temporary emotional state. But when you observe the emotion rather than becoming it, something miraculous happens. The emotion is still there, but it no longer has complete power over you. It becomes like a cloud passing through the sky of your awareness. You can feel it, acknowledge it, even learn from it, but you are not defined by it. This observer awareness is not cold or detached. It is the most intimate relationship you can have with your own experience. It is like being a loving parent to your own inner world, present, attentive, caring, but not reactive or controlling. The parent does not try to stop the child from having emotions. The parent provides a stable, loving presence within which the child can feel whatever they need to feel. You can offer this same quality of presence to your own thoughts and emotions, but observation alone is not enough. The second pillar builds upon the first and takes you even deeper into the mastery of your inner world. We call it embracing the silence within. Most people are terrified of silence. They fill every moment with noise, with activity, with stimulus. They cannot bear to be alone with their own thoughts because their inner world has become so chaotic and uncomfortable. But silence is not empty. Silence is full, mindless, full of presence, full of awareness, full of the aliveness that you are. In silence you return to your essential nature. In silence you remember who you are beneath all the roles and identities and stories. The ancient masters knew that all wisdom emerges from silence, all creativity springs from stillness, all peace is found in the quiet depths of being. But this is not the silence of suppression or avoidance. This is not about shutting down your thoughts or emotions. This is about finding the space within which thoughts and emotions arise. The silent awareness that is always present, always calm, always available. Think of a temple bell. When struck, it produces a beautiful sound that gradually fades into silence. But the silence was there before the sound, during the sound, and after the sound. The silence is not created by the absence of sound. The silence is the space within which sound appears and disappears. Your mind is like this temple bell. Thoughts arise like the sound of the bell, but they emerge from silence and return to silence. Most people become so fascinated by the sound that they forget the silence. They identify with the noise and lose touch with the space from which it arises. The practice of embracing silence within is about remembering this space, returning to this stillness, resting in this quiet awareness that is your true home. You do not need to go to a monastery or retreat to a cave to find this silence. It exists within you right now. It is present in the gap between thoughts. It is there in the moment before you speak. It is available in the between breaths. Learning to access and rest in this inner silence is what transforms you from a person driven by mental noise into someone who acts from stillness, speaks from wisdom, and moves through life with grace and presence. But how do you cultivate this relationship with inner silence when your mind seems so loud, so busy, so demanding of attention? The secret lies in understanding that you do not need to make your mind silent. You need to recognize the silence that is already there. You do not need to stop your thoughts. You need to find the space between thoughts. You do not need to eliminate mental activity. You need to rest in the awareness within which mental activity appears. Begin with your breath. Your breath is the bridge between your outer world and your inner world, between your conscious mind and your deeper being. When you bring attention to your breathing, you automatically begin to settle into the present moment. But this is not about controlling your breath or breathing in any special way. This is about using your natural breathing as a doorway into presence, as an anchor for your attention, as a way of connecting with the aliveness that flows through you. As you breathe in, feel the breath entering your body. As you breathe out, sense the release, the letting go. In the space between breath minus that moment of stillness between exhale and inhale minus rest there. That is the silence within. That is your true nature. The more you return to this breath awareness, the more you begin to live from this place of inner stillness rather than from the surface noise of mental commentary. You begin to speak from silence rather than from mental chatter. You begin to act from presence rather than from unconscious reaction. This leads us naturally to the third pillar of inner mastery, the practice of conscious choice. Most people believe they are making choices throughout their day. But if you observe carefully, you will see that most human behavior is automatic, reactive, unconscious. People respond to situations in predictable patterns based on their conditioning, their past experiences, their unconscious programming. Someone criticizes them and they automatically become defensive. Someone praises them and they automatically feel inflated. Something unexpected happens and they automatically become anxious. They are not making conscious choices, they are running unconscious programs. The spiritual warrior learns to create space between stimulus and response. In that space lies the power of conscious choice. In that space lies freedom. Think of a master martial artist facing an opponent. The untrained person would react immediately, automatically, defensively. But the masters sting. In that they assess the situation, feel into the appropriate response, and act from awareness rather than reaction. This is what conscious choice looks like. It is not about having no responses to life situations. It is about choosing your responses rather than being chosen by them. But this capacity for conscious choice must be developed like any skill. It requires training your attention, strengthening your awareness, and learning to catch yourself in moments of automatic reaction. The breath becomes your ally in this practice. When something challenging happens, when someone speaks harshly to you, when you receive disappointing news, when circumstances do not unfold as you hoped, your first response is not to react but to breathe. In that breath you create space. In that space you remember that you have a choice. You can choose to respond from your conditioning, or you can choose to respond from your wisdom. You can choose to be reactive, or you can choose to be responsive. You can choose to be a victim of circumstances, or you can choose to be the conscious creator of your experience. This does not mean you become passive or indifferent. It means you become skillful. Your responses become more appropriate, more effective, more aligned with your deeper values and intentions. When someone speaks to you in anger, instead of automatically matching their energy, you can choose to respond from peace. This does not make you weak. It makes you powerful. Anyone can react with anger. It takes mastery to respond with compassion. When you face a setback or disappointment, instead of automatically falling into despair, you can choose to see the situation as an opportunity for growth, for learning, for developing greater resilience. This does not mean you deny difficult emotions. It means you do not let difficult emotions make your decisions for you. When you encounter success or praise, instead of automatically becoming inflated or attached, you can choose to receive these gifts with gratitude while remaining centered in your true worth, which does not depend on external validation. This practice of conscious choice extends to every area of your life: how you start your morning, how you respond to stress, how you treat your body, how you speak to others, how you spend your time, how you engage with challenges. In each moment, you can choose to act from your highest understanding or from your lowest impulses. You can choose to speak from wisdom or from unconscious reaction. You can choose to move through life with awareness or on autopilot. But making conscious choices requires that you first become conscious of your unconscious patterns. You must develop the observer awareness we spoke of earlier. You must learn to catch yourself in moments of automatic reaction. You must become familiar with your own conditioning so that you can choose something different. This is not about judging your automatic patterns or trying to eliminate them completely. This is about developing the capacity to see them clearly so that you can make different choices when it serves you. Watch how you respond to criticism. Do you automatically become defensive? Do you attack back? Do you collapse into self-doubt? Or can you breathe and choose a response that comes from your wisdom rather than your wounds? Observe how you handle success. Do you automatically become inflated? Do you need to prove yourself further? Do you fear losing what you have gained? Or can you receive success with humility and gratitude while remaining grounded in your true nature? Notice how you react to unexpected changes. Do you automatically resist? Do you become anxious about the future? Do you try to control outcomes? Or can you flow with change while maintaining your inner stability? These three pillars, observances without judgment, embracing the silence within, and the practice of conscious choice, work together to create a fundamental transformation in how you experience life. When you can observe your thoughts and emotions without being consumed by them, when you can access the silence and stillness that is your essential nature, and when you can respond to life consciously rather than reactively, you are no longer at the mercy of your circumstances or your conditioning. You become like a tree with deep roots. The winds of change may sway your branches, but they cannot uproot you. The storms of life may test your flexibility, but they cannot break your core strength. The seasons may change your outer appearance, but they cannot touch your essential aliveness. This is what it means to enjoy your own company. Not because you have eliminated all challenges or difficult emotions from your life, but because you have developed the capacity to be present with whatever arises without losing your center. You no longer need external circumstances to be perfect for you to feel peaceful. You no longer need other people's approval to feel worthy. You no longer need constant stimulation to feel engaged with life. You have found the source of contentment within yourself. You have accessed the wellspring of peace that flows beneath all surface disturbances. You have connected with the joy that is your birthright as a conscious being. But like any skill, these practices must be applied consistently to bear fruit. They must become not just occasional techniques, but a way of life, a moment-to-moment return to awareness, presence, and conscious choice. The question is not whether you can do this perfectly from the beginning. The question is whether you are willing to begin, to practice, to return again and again to these fundamental principles, even when you forget, even when you fall back into old patterns, even when progress seems slow. Every moment offers a fresh opportunity to observe rather than react, to rest in silence rather than mental noise, to choose consciousness rather than unconsciousness. Every breath is a chance to return home to yourself, to remember who you truly are, to align with the peace and wisdom that is your essential nature. The path of inner mastery is not about reaching some final destination where you never face challenges again. It is about developing the inner resources to meet whatever life brings, with grace, wisdom, and an unshakable connection to your own deepest truth. When you have established yourself in these three pillars, when you have made them the foundation of your daily existence, you will find that life begins to respond differently to you. Not because the external world has changed, but because your relationship to the external world has been transformed from the inside out. How do you recognize someone who has mastered the art of enjoying their own company? They move through life with a different quality of presence. Watch them carefully. They do not seek attention, yet they naturally command respect. They do not chase after approval, yet people are drawn to their authenticity. They do not need to prove themselves, yet their quiet confidence is unmistakable. This person carries within them what the ancient texts call the peace that passes understanding. It is not the temporary peace that comes from having everything go your way. It is the permanent peace that remains steady regardless of external circumstances. You can see it in their eyes, eye depths, a stillness, a quality of being that suggests they have found something within themselves that cannot be taken away by any external force. You can hear it in their mice, not rushed, not aggressive, not desperate for validation. They speak when they have something meaningful to contribute. They remain silent when silence serves better than words. You can feel it in their presence. They are here, now fully engaged with what is in front of them, rather than lost in mental commentary about what is happening. This transformation does not happen overnight. It is not a destination you arrive at once and then never need to tend again. It is a way of being that must be cultivated daily, moment by moment, choice by choice. But when you commit to this path, when you make the inner work your highest priority, the changes begin to show themselves in ways both subtle and profound. Your relationship with stress transforms completely. Where once you were overwhelmed by pressure, now you find yourself naturally returning to your breath, to your center, to the stillness within that remains untouched by external turbulence. Stress still arises. You are human, not made of stone. But stress no longer defines you. It moves through you like weather moves through the sky. You feel it, you acknowledge it. You respond skillfully to whatever situation requires your attention, but you do not become it. Your relationship with other people transforms as well. When you are no longer desperately seeking validation from others, you can actually see them clearly. When you are no longer trying to get something from every interaction, you can give freely. When you are no longer defending a false self, you can show up authentically. People sense this shift immediately. They feel safer in your presence because you are not trying to take anything from them. They feel more relaxed because you are not judging them or trying to change them. They feel inspired by your example of what it looks like to be comfortable in your own skin. Your relationship with challenges and setbacks undergoes a complete revolution. What once would have thrown you into despair now becomes information, feedback, and opportunity to apply what you have learned about conscious choice and inner stability. You begin to see obstacles not as enemies to be defeated, but as teachers offering lessons in resilience, creativity, and trust. You understand that your external circumstances are constantly changing, but your inner peace need not fluctuate with every change in fortune. This does not make you passive or indifferent to outcomes. It makes you more effective, more creative, more resourceful, because your actions come from clarity rather than panic, from wisdom rather than desperation. Your relationship with success and achievement also transforms radically. You no longer need external accomplishments to feel worthy, so you can pursue goals from inspiration rather than insecurity. You can celebrate victories without attachment and learn from failures without devastation. Success becomes lighter, more enjoyable, because it is not carrying the weight of your self-worth. Achievement becomes a form of play rather than a form of proof. Most importantly, your relationship with time transforms. You are no longer always racing towards some future moment when you believe you will finally be happy. You are no longer trapped in regrets about the past or anxieties about what is to come. You begin to inhabit the present moment fully, and in doing so you find that this moment, this ordinary, unremarkable, perfectly simple moment contains everything you have been seeking. But understanding these transformations intellectually is very different from living them. The question that matters is not whether you can imagine this way of being, but whether you can commit to the daily practices that make it possible. Living from your center requires establishing certain rhythms, certain habits of attention and awareness that gradually reshape your entire experience of being alive. Your morning becomes sacred time. Instead of immediately reaching for external stimulation, you begin your day by connecting with your own presence. This might be through conscious breathing, through sitting in silence, through feeling the aliveness in your body. You create space at the beginning of each day to remember who you are beneath all your roles and responsibilities. You set an intention to remain connected to your deeper wisdom throughout whatever challenges the day may bring. Throughout your day you develop the habit of returning to your breath when you notice tension building, returning to the observer awareness when you catch yourself lost in mental drama, returning to conscious choice when you feel yourself reacting automatically. This returning is not a sign of failure, it is the very essence of the practice. Every time you notice you have drifted into unconsciousness and choose to come back to awareness, you strengthen the muscle of presence. Your evening becomes a time of reflection and gratitude. Instead of collapsing into mindless entertainment or restless worry about tomorrow, you create space to acknowledge what you learned during the day, what you handled skillfully, where you might choose differently next time. You end each day by reconnecting with the peace that is always available within you, regardless of how the day unfolded. You remind yourself that your worth is not determined by your performance, your peace is not dependent on your circumstances, and your essential nature remains untouched by the temporary experiences of personality. But what about when you forget? What about when you fall back into old patterns of reactivity, of seeking outside yourself, of losing your center in the chaos of daily life? This is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be accepted. You are not trying to become perfect. You are learning to be more conscious, more present, more aware of your choices and their consequences. When you notice you have been operating from unconscious patterns, you do not waste energy in self-judgment or regret. You simply return, you breathe, you remember, you choose again. The spiritual warrior understands that the path is not about never falling down. The path is about getting up more quickly each time, falling down less often, and maintaining your sense of humor and compassion for your own human limitations. Each moment of returning to awareness strengthens your capacity for presence. Each conscious choice makes the next conscious choice more likely. Each time you rest in your own being, rather than seeking fulfillment outside yourself, you deepen the grooves of inner peace. Over time, what required tremendous effort begins to feel natural. What once seemed impossible becomes your normal way of being. What you had to remember constantly becomes your automatic response. You find yourself naturally breathing consciously when tension arises. You spontaneously return to the observer awareness when emotions become intense. You instinctively create space between stimulus and response without having to think about it. This is not because you have become superhuman, but because you have returned to your true human nature. This peace, this presence, this capacity for conscious choice, these are not foreign impositions on your personality, they are the expression of who you really are when you are not caught up in the illusion of separation and inadequacy. The person who has learned to enjoy their own company becomes a gift to everyone they encounter. They bring peace into chaotic situations. They offer wisdom in moments of confusion. They provide stability when others are overwhelmed by change, but they do not do this by trying to fix anyone else or by preaching about spiritual principles. They do it simply by being who they are, present, authentic, undefended, connected to their own source of peace and wisdom. This is how transformation spreads, not through arguments or convincing, but through example. Not through teaching what you know, but through being who you are. When others see you comfortable in your own skin, content with your own company, responsive rather than reactive, they begin to remember that this is possible for them as well. Your peace gives them permission to seek their own peace. Your authenticity reminds them of their own true nature. This is the ripple effect of inner work. When you transform your relationship with yourself, you inevitably transform your relationships with others. When you find peace within, you become a source of peace in the world. When you enjoy your own company, you make every interaction more enjoyable for everyone involved. But the most profound gift you give yourself through this practice is the recognition that you have been carrying within you everything you ever sought outside yourself. The love you wanted from others exists in the love you can offer yourself. The validation you craved from the world exists in the acceptance you can give to your own experience. The peace you hope to find in perfect circumstances exists in your willingness to be present with whatever circumstances actually arise. This recognition brings with it a deep sense of coming home, not to a place but to yourself. Not to an achievement but to your being, not to a future possibility but to the reality of what you are right now. There is profound relief in this homecoming. The endless search is over. The desperate seeking can finally rest. You have found what you were looking for, and you have found it in the last place most people think to look: peace within your own heart, your own presence, your own willingness to be exactly who you are. From this place of inner fulfillment you engage with life not from need but from abundance. You love not to get love but because love is what you are. You create not to prove yourself but because creativity is your natural expression. You serve not to earn worth but because service flows naturally from a heart that is full. This is the great paradox we began with, now seen from the other side. To enjoy life fully, you must first learn to enjoy yourself completely. To love others deeply, you must first love yourself unconditionally. To find peace in the world, you must first find peace within your own being. The journey that seemed to lead away from the world actually leads you back to the world with deeper appreciation, greater capacity, and more to offer. The solitude that seemed like withdrawal from relationship actually prepares you for more authentic connection than you ever thought possible. You return to the same activities, the same relationships, the same responsibilities, but you bring to them a completely different quality of attention and care. You are no longer trying to get something from your life. You are learning to give yourself fully to your life. This is mastery. Not the mastery of external circumstances, but the mastery of your own inner world. Not the elimination of all challenges, but the development of unshakable inner resources for meeting whatever arises. You have become your own best friend, your own wisest counselor, your own most reliable source of peace and strength. You have learned the most important skill anyone can learn, how to be happy in your own company. And from this foundation, everything else in your life can flourish. Not because you have changed the world, but because you have changed your relationship to the world. Not because you have become someone else, but because you have finally become fully yourself. The question that opened this conversation, Mises, why do you run from the one person you can never escape, now has its answer. You run because you never learned how wonderful that person could be once you stop running long enough to really get to know them. The invitation now is simple. Stop running. Turn around. Extend your hand to yourself with the same kindness you would offer a beloved friend. Sit down in your own presence and stay there long enough to remember what you have been missing all along. You are more than good enough company. You are the only company you will have from your first breath to your last. Learning to enjoy this relationship, to nurture it, to honor it, to find peace and joy and fulfillment within it. This is not just a nice idea or a spiritual luxury. This is the foundation of a life well lived. This is the secret that unlocks every door you have been trying to force open through external means. This is the key to enjoying not just your own company, but enjoying everything else that life has to offer. The path is before you. The choice is yours. The time is now.